The new Boost Mobile network is offering unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month for life.
That sounds like a threat.
Then how do you think we should say it?
Unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month for the rest of your life?
I don't know.
Until your ultimate demise.
What if we just say forever?
Okay.
$25 a month, forever.
Get unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month with Boost Mobile forever.
After 30 gigabytes, customers may experience slower speeds. Customers will pay $25 a month as long as they remain active on the Boost Unlimited plan.
Hey there. Looking to level up your shopping experience? Let me introduce you to Amazon Live. If you haven't heard, it's a shoppable video experience where influencers and creators showcase the latest must-haves all while you shop in real time. And for those who love some celeb gossip, reality stars like Kyle Richards, Lala Kent, and friend of the pod, Paige DeSorbo. On her new show, In Bed with Paige DeSorbo, Paige invites top-tier guests to cozy up in her fluffy bed where they spill secrets, share nighttime routines, and even whip up midnight snacks. Stream and shop new episodes of her series In Bed with Paige DeSorbo every Tuesday at 7 p.m. ET by going to amazon.com/live/Paige_DeSorbo. Or you can watch Amazon Live's new live TV channel on Freevee or Prime Video under the DIY section and shop along on your phone.
Hello and welcome to 31 Days of Terror, day number 2. And I have 3 spooky stories for you today, and the last story comes from August the 19th, 2024. And story number 1 comes from Ellie. My earliest memory of this experience would be from when I was around 3 years old. Me, my mum and my dad used to live in quite an old house. And most of the time, late at night, when I definitely should have been asleep, they would hear me talking to someone on the baby monitor. So they would come upstairs and ask who I was talking to, and my response would always be, the man. So obviously this used to creep them out, and it would happen quite frequently. As time went on, the man would make himself more known around the house, especially in my room. I used to watch my wallpaper get peeled off the wall, as well as some fairy stickers I had near my bed. My mum told me that I used to say, he doesn't like the decorations. There were a few instances that I'll never forget. One of which was being woken up in the middle of the night to what sounded like knocking on my wooden headboard, and it didn't stop until my dad entered the room. Once my dad came in, he brought our dog at the time with him, and she immediately started to growl and snarl in the corner of the room opposite my bed. My dad asked me if he's in the room right now, and I said, yeah, he stood behind you. Which obviously is not something you'd want to hear, so my dad quickly took me out of the bed and took me downstairs. Another time would be when I was sleeping in my mum and dad's room because it got to the point that I was too scared to sleep in mine. So I would sleep in the middle of them both, and this particular night I woke up, and as I sat up, the man was standing in the doorway. I could see him as clear as day. My mum used to say that I said he looked like Santa, as if I was looking at a real person. The man then walked into the room over to the bed, the side my dad was sleeping on, leaned over my dad, looked at me, put his finger on his lips and walked away. Creepy as fuck, I know. Shortly after that experience, my mum got the local priest to come in and bless the house. We didn't have any other issues after that. But we did find out that the man used to live in the house and actually died in the room that used to be mine. So that explains why he was always in my room. I always think with stories like this, do people like this man, do they not realise that they're dead? Is that why they're hanging around and he's, taking the wallpaper and the fairy stickers from the wall because he's like, this is my room and I don't want these fairy stickers and this wallpaper on my walls, and that's why he's hanging around? Which is obviously really sad. It's not something you want to think about, that when you die you get stuck in this world and you don't move on to wherever it is that you go. But I really do feel for your parents in this instance because, holy moly, having to deal with that, they're like, oh, great. Oh, yeah, she's seen that man again. This is brilliant. Oh, yeah, the dog is now growling and snarling at a corner of the room. Brilliant. Yeah, great. And then to find out afterwards that there was a man that lived in the house and that your bedroom used to be his, that's wild. All you can do is kind of hope that with the priest coming into the house that the man was able to move on to, you know, wherever it was that he needed to get to. Kids are weird, man. And story number 2 comes from Emma. I've been receptive to paranormal experiences all my life. The first I remember was when I was very young. I was 4 or 5 years old in the early 80s. I had a pet rabbit. I was playing with him in my garden and my mum had said to be gentle because he wasn't too well. I sat beside him stroking his tummy. I can only explain that I watched his spirit or his ghost then sit up and rise into the air. I recall he then faded away about the level halfway up next door's climbing frame, just the other side of the fence. And I realised he'd then died. Another experience not long after was while I was at school, sitting on a carpet waiting for the end of day story. I have dyslexia, and I was trying to think how to write a capital E for my name, Emma. I looked to my right and saw a ghost, an old lady with white hair in a bun wearing a white lace dress, hovering about 2 feet off the ground. A few weeks later I saw her sat beside me on my bed. I had the feeling that she was there for me. Since then, I've seen shadows and images in my mind, even as recently as this morning. If I lose something like keys, I ask the universe to help me find it, and I get an image in my head as to where it is. It's quite handy, really. I've also seen a UFO. When I was pregnant with my daughter and then my son, each time I just knew their gender instinctively and bought baby clothes. Family and friends laughed, but I was adamant and right. I've never been spooked by my experiences and just accept that's how I am. Although my mum says when I told her about them when I was young, she found it a bit spooky. I could go on for a long time about each experience, including just knowing that I had to be around my parents the day my stepdad suddenly passed away. I love when I hear people say, look, you know, weird things happen to me, but I just accept it. I live with it. I don't get spooked by it. It just is who I am. Because I'm sure there's people listening who, you know, are more receptive or more susceptible to paranormal stuff. And maybe it's good for them to hear that, oh, you know, you can live with this without having to live in fear. I think it's amazing and kind of beautiful that you saw your pet rabbit's, I don't know, spirit, soul, ghost, whatever it is, rise into the air. And then, you know, we realised that he had passed away. Because I'm a firm believer that animals have souls and spirits, and you know that they're not just an animal and when they die they're gone and that's it. Like, I think that animals do have a spirit and that they can come back and check in on us, etc. I'd love to know if you ever figured out or found out who the old lady with the white hair in a bun was. This woman that was wearing a white lace dress and was hovering off the ground. And because then you saw her at school, and then you saw her a few weeks later sat beside you on your bed. I wonder if she is a relative, so like a great-great-grandmother, somebody who is looking out for you. And listen, could you ask the universe for some of my lost things back? That'd be great. Thank you. And it sounds like you have the gift of knowing, which is a very beautiful gift. And I'm glad that you have learned to live harmoniously with it.
Explaining football to the friend who's just there for the nachos? Hard. Tailgating from home like a pro with snacks and drinks everyone will love? An easy win. And with Instacart helping deliver the snack time MVPs to your door, you're ready for the game in as fast as 30 minutes. So you never miss a play or lose your seat on the couch or have to go head-to-head for the last chicken wing. Shop Game Day Faves on Instacart and enjoy $0 delivery fees on your first 3 grocery orders. Offer valid for a limited time. Other fees and terms apply.
And story number 3 comes from Lewis. I've been listening for years and have finally built up the courage to write in. My first story is a bit of a compilation of things I experienced in the house that I used to live in. I live in Australia but spent time living in the United States when I was younger. When I was 5, my mum packed us up and off we went to California. It was 2001, and yes, my mum took advantage of the fact that after September 2001, airline tickets were incredibly cheap. The suburb we moved to was lovely. It had great community. I made friends and settled into school. My mum eventually got married and all was going well. Except for the house that we lived in. Something was off about the house. One day I was hanging out with Mum at home when we heard a loud noise. The door leading to our backyard had a small window in it. It had completely shattered. No big shards were on the ground or jagged pieces left in the window frame. It had all shattered into pieces no bigger than a centimetre in length and width. I must have blocked this next one out because it scared me so much, but my mum insists that it happened. We were in the backyard. I was going for a swim or something and Mum was just relaxing by the pool. We looked up at the kitchen window and thought that my stepfather was home. There was a tall black shadow that we could see standing in the kitchen. After a few minutes of wondering why my stepfather was being a weirdo and not coming out to join us, Mum went inside and I followed. Nobody was home. My stepfather hadn't returned from work yet. My mum has also told me that while sitting in the lounge watching TV, she turned her head and looked down the hallway. She saw a woman walk across the end of the hall from left to right. My stepbrother's room used to be the garage. It was fully renovated and converted to be the coolest bedroom I'd ever seen at my age. It was down a hall past the laundry and far away from any other rooms or living spaces in the rest of the home. When he moved out, I was around 7 or so and therefore got my complimentary room upgrade. I was stoked. I moved all of my toys, pillows and stuffed animals into the room. His room was finally my room. The first night, the dreams started. Horrific nightmares that felt like they would never end. They were awful. In some of them, I was running away from people. Some of the people were friends, some were family, and others were strangers. All of them were chasing me with pure hatred. What made it worse was that the dreams were fast. Not fast in the sense that they were over quickly, but fast in the speed that the events played out. Imagine life just going along, but someone is holding down a fast forward button. That's what they felt like. I often woke up from these dreams only to doze off again and be right back in them. Running for my life, running from pure, unbiased hate. They were shit. Over time, they got worse. I couldn't wake up. I'd be chased. I would run for my life until I couldn't run anymore and would have to hide. Slowly, I'd hear the people approach until they found me. They'd kill me. I was often shot by one of them. But when I was killed, I wouldn't wake up. I'd just be there, somehow looking at my dead body. One night, I went to bed expecting the same to happen. I'd fall asleep, spend all night running and dying, and then I'd wake up for school. But that didn't happen. This dream was normal, or so I thought. It was my mum, my stepfather and me. We were in a bank and they were talking to the bank teller through the glass security window. I was standing behind them, and off to my right I noticed at the end of the hallway that there was a door. This must be where all the money is, I can remember thinking to myself. I walked down to the door and looked over my shoulder to make sure I wasn't going to get in trouble and opened the door. It opened to a small, dark room. The space wasn't any bigger than a linen press. In the room was my auntie. I was shocked and confused. She lived back in Australia. What was she doing here? I looked at her for a few seconds and got a sense of dread. Something was wrong. A darkness was escaping from the little room. Confused, I looked at my auntie. "Dizzy?" I asked her. She looked at me, almost through me, through my eyes into my soul. "No, but dizzy made me," she said flatly. She brought a gun up to my head and pulled the trigger. This time I woke up screaming. It was morning. I ran to my mum and told her everything. Every detail of the dream. Every detail of every other nightmare I'd had since moving into that room. My mum, who I now know is a lot more in touch with the spiritual side than I had realised, looked at me for a while in silence. "Swap rooms," she finally said. "What?" I asked her, confused as hell. "Go back to your old bedroom." I did as I was told, and that night went to bed in my old room. I slept like a log, soundly with no nightmares. I never went back to the other room, and I never had another nightmare for the rest of the time we lived in that house. My second story is shorter, but it is one of the scariest things I've ever experienced. About 17 years later, I was about 24 and back in Australia. I was on holiday with my cousin Emerson. We were in a place called Byron Bay on the far northeast coast of New South Wales. We were staying in a hotel just on the outskirts of town. The car park of the hotel backed up to bushland, and at night it was nothing but pitch black. Of course, our allocated parking spot was right at the back of the car park. We came back to the hotel from doing whatever it was we were doing. It was night time by then and very dark. My cousin pulled into the parking spot nose first, meaning that my side of the car was closest to the bushland. When I opened the door to get out, I heard it. Psst. I slammed the door shut again. I felt sick. I felt every part of my body decide for me that I was not dealing with that shit. My cousin, on the other hand, thought I was being suck. He didn't hear it, I might add. After a minute or so of me yelling that I would rather climb over the centre console to get out of the car or stay in the car until daylight, my cousin had had enough of me. Stop being ridiculous, there's nothing fucking there. My cousin came around to my side of the car and violently opened the door. See, he said, nothing. Almost immediately out of the darkness, it happened again. Psst. My cousin, who was quite large, moved faster than anyone I've ever seen. I managed to jump out of the car and was on his heels, running straight for the door of our room. Now, I know what you might be thinking. It could have been a person in the dark playing a cruel trick, perhaps someone homeless, but it wasn't. I know it wasn't. We both do. We could feel it. Pulsing through our veins was pure fear. A human did not make that noise, and neither of us want to know what did. We both refused to speak about it. I had to ask for permission from my cousin to write this and send it in. To this day, even just hearing someone make that noise, my blood runs cold and I get covered in goosebumps. I remember somebody telling me before, many moons ago, that glass shattering, or like the sound of glass shattering, was a sign of a birth or maybe a death. Opposite ends of the spectrum there, but you know what I mean. But in this instance, it sounds like it's neither of those things, and potentially just whatever that shadow figure that was in the kitchen was just, getting out some aggression. I wonder what it was in the garage bedroom that was giving you such nightmares, right? Because, I've been there where you upgrade your bedroom. When my sister moved out and I ended up in her bedroom, very exciting. It's a great time and you're like, woohoo, bigger bedroom, etc., etc. And then all of a sudden you go in there and you're having horrific nightmares. I wonder, did your brother end up having hideous nightmares as well, and that's why your mum was immediately like, right, get out of that bedroom? Like, what if he had told her he had been having bad nightmares and then all of a sudden you were like, I'm having bad nightmares too, so she was putting two and two together and going, go back to your old bedroom, okay? Even if you are super skeptical, I think it is very strange that particular spaces like bedrooms, particular rooms in houses can make people have these horrendous nightmares. And even if you are super skeptical, I wonder if there is a natural explanation for it. Like, we know that infrasound can make people feel like sick and, nauseous and anxious and all of those things. Is it possible that it can also make people have terrible nightmares or something akin to infrasound? And I don't know what it was about the last story, but the thing going psst, it really gave me the heebie-jeebies. And I know that feeling of like something isn't right. And it could be perfectly human, but in that moment you're like, I need to get out of here. And that is so scary. Like, what were your senses telling you? What was your intuition telling you deep down inside? What was it warning you about? Thank you so much for listening to day number 2 of 31 Days of Terror. Thank you to Ellie, Emma and Lewis for sending in your stories. Remember, the last story came from August the 19th, 2024. And if you would like to send in your story, you can do so by emailing it to reallifeghoststoriespodcast@gmail.com. You can also check out the website, reallifeghoststoriespodcast.com. And if you are desperate for some extra content, you can subscribe to the Patreon. That is patreon.com/reallifeghoststories, where for $5 a month or $2 a month, you get access to heaps of extra content, as well as every single main and mini episode completely ad-free. And on that note, I shall see you next time.